it's time now to begin this webinar on the executive DBA. It will last 45 minutes. Thank you also to Johan Sapanel and Constantin Strangas, who will give us some testimonies about their experience. And thank you to my colleague, Professor Nathalie Mitev, who is in charge of the English online program. I am Michel Kalika, the president of Business Science Institute and also the founder of Business Science Institute. And first of all, I'm going to give you some technical advice. Then we will go ahead on the presentation. And of course, you will have the opportunity to ask for a question through the Q&A or through the chat. Because a lot number of people connect today, so the microphone are closed, but you can at all the moment you can send comments and questions in the chat or in the Q&A version. So first of all, an information about a survey that two organizations, EFMD and EDBAC. EDBAC is the Executive DBA Council. EFMD is an international organization focusing on accreditation. And for them, we organized last year, a few months ago, a survey among the 100 deans all over the world. And we asked them if, in their opinion, in the coming years, the DBA market will grow significantly. And you see that nearly 30% think that the market will grow significantly, grow somewhat. And you see that 57% think that. And so we have a large majority of people that who make the hypothesis that the market will in the future know development. The reason why, there are different reasons. There is one reason which is related to the MBA program. We said generally that the MBA now is in maturity or in decline. It could be one reason. Another reason that people mention is that the crisis make some knowledge totally obsolete, and there is a need to create new knowledge. And there is another reason that is mentioned. It's a need to reduce the gap between the academic world and the practitioner world. And this is a reason very important indeed, because the DBA is really a way to reduce the gap between the two worlds. And I just mentioned a book that we publish in English and in French. It's 80 tales about DBA impact. And we have been very, very surprised through this interview that we realize by the impact of the DBA, impact on people, impact on company, and also societal impact. And first of all, I would like to begin this webinar in giving the floor to our participant, Johan Sapatel. Can you give us a testimony about your experience in the DBA, why you are involved in a DBA, which kind of topic, and what do you expect also from the DBA?
Sounds good. So thanks a lot, Prof. Kalika. And so good, I guess if you're in Singapore, good evening, everyone. So I'm Johan Sapanel, and I just completed my year number 2 of the DBA. So now maybe if I go back like 2 to 3 years ago, why did I basically sign up and join the basically this specific DBA? So for me initially was to get an extra specialization, to be recognized for specializations that I wanted to basically have, and to go really further in a really specific area. So that was the reason of DBA/PhD. I was not really sure at the time, but I wanted to have these extra specializations. But so today I work for the National University of Singapore, And it was really important for me to have a certifications that will be recognized academically speaking in any universities, being in Singapore or in the US or anywhere. But it was also important to have certifications, specializations that will be recognized not only from the academic perspective, but also from what you mentioned earlier, Prof, the practitioners of what I call the industry. So I'm coming from a medtech pharma background from the industry. So I wanted to bridge this gap between the academic and the more practitioner world. So the DBA for me was the answer to my questions between, these new specializations and doing basically a PhD versus a DBA. I think I wanted really specific, actionable, tangible results out of this basically 3 to 4 years kind of investment and commitment, right? And now why BSI specifically? So, one of the requirements that I had was I wanted a 100% online basically program, because you don't know what you don't know and what you might have in terms of commitment, professional or personal commitment in the next 3 to 4 years. So for me, this 100% online commitment was the only way for me to be able to commit to basically the investment over 3 years, basically, right? It was a good way for me to convince my wife also that, I would be able to manage my time basically more effectively. But then I realized when you want something like 100% online, you have a lot of scams online. And so when I found out about the BSI and I knew the schools, the partners that the schools have in terms of partnerships and collaborations in France, in Luxembourg, being French myself, I knew these schools really well established. Obviously, the AMBA accreditations was an additional kind of credibility to the schools, the experience of the students. So for me, it was quite straightforward decisions to go with basically the BSI Institute for this DBA. So as I said, I'm almost in year 3 now. So my first year was really about the theory. I wanted to complete all the modules, the learnings, the theory first, really about the learning, understanding like what I would do or not do in terms of methodologies and so on. There are a lot of things that I didn't know and I didn't expect to learn also. And was really about defining and focusing on my research proposal. When I started the DBA, I knew the topic. So I'm basically looking at digital health solutions and the economic impact that such solutions or digital health solutions would have on ourselves as patients in terms of the healthcare systems or government in general. So digital health solutions impact, economic impact. So I knew about the topic, but again, coming from the industry perspective, I had to bridge the gap about what is the research questions, maybe more from an academic perspective. So there are quite a few learnings on the year 1 and a lot of kind of modifications and tweaks to my research proposal. So this was theory and research proposal was basically the year 1 for me. The year 2 was working on the thesis and paper. So I went the paper-based approach, which means that I'm going to publish 3 papers and basically submit these 3 papers that will be the core of the thesis at the end of the DBA. So out of the 3 papers, the paper 1 is done and published. So this was year 1. Year 2, sorry. The paper 2 is almost done, about to be submitted for publications. And basically, I'm starting my year 3 to focus on the third and the last paper and basically the thesis. And I hope next year in March, basically, to be able to defend my thesis. So I'm like more or less halfway, 60% there, I would say, throughout the journey. And happy to answer any questions you might have later on that might be specific or less specific, because I guess we are all going through the same kind of thought process and more or less having the same kind of questions. So I guess Constantin and myself, we might share our own perspective, which is just one perspective, but feel free to connect offline if you have any questions.
Thank you, Johan. One question, please. How do you manage your time? How many hours a week? When do you work for the
So
DBA?
yeah, so I think that's a question that all kind of new students or potential students would have is, so I guess for me, I would try to block like at least like 2 hours sessions when on the year 1 when I was focusing on some of the modules, And working on my research proposal will be at least like 2 hour session. So like, for example, Saturday morning, that will be my DBA time. And this is the kind of agreement that I had with my wife, like Saturday morning, it's my time for my DBA. So the year one, I was extremely focused and a bit more structured. On the evenings, I will try like 1 to 2 hours, some of the evenings or on the Saturday morning. Now that I'm more on the year two and year three onwards, because I'm focusing on the papers, I have much more flexibility, I guess, because I'm working with a few stakeholders, researchers, my supervisors. So I need their feedback, I need their input. So it's not about, I have some dependencies in a way. So I'm much more flexible with my time and the way I manage my time. But I guess on the year one was kind of a few hours a
Okay.
week. But
Okay.
you know, the topic is also super aligned, almost like 99% aligned with what I do in my
Mhm.
day-to-day job. So
Mhm.
it's not like I do something else on the evening, basically. It's just like, you know, what I do in the morning is the same as
Very
I do in
important.
the evening. Yeah. And I think this what kind of makes my day much more efficient from a time management versus working on a totally different topic, basically.
Okay. You mentioned your supervisor. Your supervisor is based in Singapore?
So my supervisor is Professor Martin Cloutier.
I know.
It's based in Canada. Uh,
Okay.
so yeah, totally different region. And yeah, I've been working with him closely for the last 2 years now on the research proposals and the different papers. And he's an expert in one of the specific methodology that we call group concept mapping that basically that I'm using now on daily basis, but I did not know when I started the DBA. So this was one of the many learnings, basically learning about this group concept mapping with Professor Martin Cloutier.
Okay. Thank you, Johan. I give the floor to Constantin.
Sure, perfect. Thank you very much, Professor Kalika. Good evening, everyone here in Singapore. So my name is Constantin Strangas. As you may be able to hear from my accent, unlike Johan, I'm not French by background, but nonetheless, and I'll come to that in a moment. It links back to my choice of BSI indirectly a little bit. But before that, allow me maybe just to start briefly on why I even considered or explore the option of a DBA. So I have a couple of different jobs. So I'm a believer in portfolio careers. I have a full-time career as a senior executive in a multinational organization. I'm in a HR leadership role. I run my own executive coaching practice. I'm also a lecturer here at Singapore University of Social Sciences, where I teach at the graduate program for human capital management. So both postgraduate certificates, postgraduate diplomas, and master studies. And I think that portfolio career element, having different pillars, will continue, and I think more and more people actually in today's age and future will have that type of portfolio career. So then the question that I asked myself is, what's the consistent theme across these different pillars? And that's really the human centricity, the human capital management, the people centricity, and hence how can I really underline at highest level of thinking and the application of that thinking, that I'm an expert in my field, and B, that I can apply this expertise both in practice but also in theory to help others in that area. And that's really where a doctoral degree was the natural choice, and why an DBA as opposed to a PhD, and that is because a PhD is great if I had decided to make the teaching and the research pillar my main pillar, but given that I am practicing across multiple pillars, this is where the DBA plays a very unique role in underlining. It's stressful, and I'm not quite there yet, but I hope I will get there in due course. To really underline that I can deliver thought process, critical thinking, translation of knowledge into creating new knowledge at the highest academic level, but at the same time do so in a very applied manner, that also has an impact to my role as a HR executive, that has an impact on my role as a executive coach, or as some of the board appointments that I hold. So hence the why choosing an EDBA, and specifically why the Business Science Institute. And this is where probably Johan's reasoning and mine are a little bit similar. Firstly, the world of DBA has been relatively new when I started considering a DBA. So it was a very lengthy thought process for several years that I knew I wanted to do a doctoral degree, until I then actually kicked things off. And that space is very rapidly evolving. And I think there's a lot of interesting organizations that promise a lot and then magnificently under-deliver. And what I really liked about the BSI, not to flatter you unnecessarily, Professor Kalicka, but what you've really created to do is bring together, what was it, close to 200 professors from around the world who are subject matter experts in their respective field, who are a network, not in a tangible brick and mortar type of university campus setting, but in a network type of setting, bring outstanding thought leaders together who share this passion to educate the next generation of doctoral students. And that's what I find so fascinating, is because there are 170 professors available from, or more even, given how rapidly growing and evolving the landscape is here. So that really allows for a very good match in terms of topic, research approach, personal interests and interests and aspirations of the supervisor, to really find a very, very suitable match. Like in my case, my supervisor is based in the UK. I'm based in Singapore. Time zones are not really an issue. Even in my professional life, I work in a global role across time zones anyway. But what we have in common is that both from a research methodology, from a subject, as well as from a thematical standpoint, there's a very, very strong overlap that I really feel I have an incredible amount of value that I can get from my supervisor. And that's what I find so value add, as opposed to a traditional PhD student, where you as a PhD student have to fit into the research agenda of the professor. And whereas here it's really I'm sure professors are very selective about which topics they accept and which students, because ultimately you also don't want to support a student who doesn't have the ambition to finish their studies and so on. But this ability to match for compatibility and fit, it's what absolutely fascinates me at the BSI, and part of the reason why I chose it. And underlined, and perhaps just as a finishing comment here, it's underlined that your partnership with well-established, long-standing public institutions, like for example here with the IAE Lyon, that awards the doctorate. The question of, is it a scam? Will a degree be recognized? Will it be worth my several years of blood, sweat, and tears and sacrifice? I've just like Joanna, I have a wife, I have kids. There's a bit of a compromise that needs to be made. Family is very supportive, but it is a bit of a compromise. And the last thing that you want after several years of making the sacrifice is realizing that what you invested in is not worth the paper it's printed on. And this is where I find the BSI distinguishes itself significantly from many other institutions.
Thank you very much for your nice comment. I have the feeling, yes, Natalie? No, I have the feeling that you said everything about the motivation, about Business Science Institute. Thank you very, very much for presenting your experience, and through your experience, our institution. So now I am going to tell some word about Business Science Institute. It's a non-for-profit organization established 10 years ago, an international academic network organization. Constantin just mentioned that. We focus only, and we are quite unique on that, only on the DBA. But as a professor of strategy, we know that strategy of specialization has a relationship with efficiency, and we try to be efficient. We are one of the 12 AMBA accredited DBA in the world. And we have also, and we are quite proud about that, we are also certified responsible doctoral school. It means that we take into consideration the question of plagiarism, the question of publication, and honestly in research. We have a partnership with the University of Lyon, Public University of Lyon, and so it's a double degree. We have also another partnership with ICN for a small group in sustainable innovation management. And I said we are unique as an institution, and we publish a unique collection of books dedicated to the DBA. We publish more than 55 books in relation with the DBA. Half of them have been published by our faculty, and half of them have been published by our doctor. And as Johan mentioned before, we intend to create knowledge and we intend to generate impact. For us, a DBA is more than a degree. Of course, it's a degree. It's a double degree, but it's also an opportunity to generate impact of people, impact on company, impact on society. And we are also an affordable, high-quality program. It's a unique program delivered in English, French, German, and since a few weeks in Spanish, available either face-to-face and online. We have roughly 220 doctoral students. They are coming from all over the world. And the average age is very interesting because the DBA is not for young students. The average age is 46. Another point which is important is that, okay, we have 220 students registered and working on the process, on the DBA, but more than 170 already defended their thesis. It means that our system is working because of the follow-up. It's possible to prepare the DBA while you are working in a company or institution. We have a lot of international professors, and though they work with us, they are convinced of the added value of the DBA for the manager, of course, but also for them. And part of our DNA that our team is very responsive and very involved also. Maybe we can say some word about the faculty, Nathalie, and then the program.
Yes, thank you, Michel. I'm Nathalie Musev, and I'm the academic coordinator for the English Online DBA. So Jan and Costas are my students who I follow. And I'm based in the UK. As discussed already, we've got a large number of international professors spread all around the world in various universities. And what we share is this interest in DBAs and DBA students and what they bring to us and the exchange between the academic world and the practical world. So one of my jobs as the academic coordinators is for the English Online DBA is to match a student to a potential supervisor, and that's a very interesting part of my responsibility. The professors all published in various fields of management, so we cover all the various disciplines within management, so from marketing to strategy to supply chain, etc. And all of them, well, not all of them, but most of their modules are available online. For the online version are designed by a range of professors in those various disciplines, and the supervisors, our supervisors who supervise students, are all very interested in drawing from the research recommendations for practice. You can move on. Next slide.
Yeah, the program, please.
Yeah. So the DBA is structured in three phases, and Johan also described some of those. He's in phase 2. So phase 1 is to do with understanding what research is about, with what is methodology, what is a thesis, and the foundations of doing research. It takes about, depending on the progress you're making with them. When you do it online, you do it in your own time. If you do it face to face, you do 5 3-day seminars. But if you do it online, you can choose your own rhythm, and you also have to produce some work on which you get feedback, and you also get Zoom with each module teacher, which is a great way of meeting our professors online. So that also helps with the future. Phase 2 is when you start the actual research. And phase 3 is where you write the thesis. Both phase 2 and phase 3, during those 2 phases, we also organize follow-up seminars in which you present your research at the stage you've reached by then, and you get feedback from 2 different professors every time. So again, that kind of broadens your access to various professors during the program, and you can always ask to contact any of them at any time. And at the end of this, every year we get an international program. Twice a year we have an international seminar, during which we organize conferences, presentations, workshops, and during which the thesis defenses are carried out, as well as the certificate of research, which is an intermediate step you take at the end of phase 1.
Professor Mitef, I have a question, and you can answer now because it is related to the program. How is specified the supervisor, and do we always find a supervisor on all topics?
The way to find a supervisor is usually on the English online version, and it's the same for the French. My colleagues who look after the French version and German versions do it in the same way. We have regular Zoom sessions with each student, and we also look at the progress they make through their learning on the formal teaching, the modules. And we have Zoom sessions, so we discuss the progress they're making in their own thinking about the thesis. The modules are designed, particularly when they work on each module, at the end they have to produce some kind of document which tries to relate the material they've just done on each module to their thesis topic. And they also, at the end of each 3 modules, we also have a recap, and we ask for reflections on their own progress in relationship to their thesis. So through all these methods, I get a sense of where each student is at and which direction they're moving into. So depending on the domain and also the methodology, I then consult colleagues thinking about who potentially could be interested, and I approach people, sending them some documents that the students have produced to get feedback, and then usually, because of the choice of domain and even the topic within a domain, as well as the methodology the student is thinking of using, the match can work really well. And we've got so many professors, it's often difficult to pick one, rather than we could have several potentially interested in a student topic. So there's no difficulty in identifying someone. We've never had any problems.
Thank you, Professor Mitef. And to the second part of the question, do we always find a supervisor? I can answer on that. Yes, we always find, because we are a network, and we have no limit in the topic. The only condition is that the topic has to be related to management topic in private, in public institution, in association. But we always find a professor. It's a double degree. I mentioned that before. At the end of the first year, there is a certificate of research in business administration. And then after the defense, there is one defense with a common jury from IAE Lyon, University of Lyon, and Business Science Institute. And after the jury, the new doctor receive the doctorate from the University of Lyon, signed by the president of the university, and the executive DBA from Business Science Institute. I said before that it's more than a degree. A DBA is more than a degree. It's you know, we created a prize about the impact of the DBA, and recently, last July, the Financial Times just mentioned one of our doctorate students coming from Switzerland about her impact through her DBA thesis on the purchasing in her industry. And also some of our students receive prizes from academic institutions. I didn't mention that before, but of course, we focus on quality. That's very important for us, you know. Do I have the right profile, Professor Mitef?
When you apply through an email which is available on the website, and you get in touch with Yasmin, one of our support team, who's very knowledgeable about the process of applying, and she can answer any queries. But what we check is the fact that you have 5 years of managerial experience and a graduate degree, either MBA or master's. The next stage is to send your documents, and we have an interview.
Yeah. On the CV, you present yourself, and you will receive a first answer in 44 hours to avoid any application, unuseful application. And we manage on the online track. We manage registration during the year. There is you can enter the program when you want. Anytime. Month, anytime. Every month we have new students that can join the program.
That's particularly true of the online version. Yeah.
Yeah.
You can apply anytime. You can start your program anytime.
And that's a big advantage on the online version. Can you say, we have another question, Professor Mitef, about the International Week. The last week of September, we have an International Week.
Which is, the aim is to have it face-to-face if possible. So we usually recommend for the online English students to come at least once or twice. Well, it'd be nice if they can come for their final Viva anyway. But it's a great chance to meet professors face-to-face as well as other students, although we do have collective Zooms that we do regularly on the online English version. At the international seminar, you also, it's not just going and presenting your work, it's also, you can go in and listen to anybody else's presentation, which is extremely useful when you are starting or even within a year, you know, when you're moving through the process. To hear other people's presentations and discussions, because each presentation, whether it's a follow-up seminar, a certificate presentation, and even a final Viva, there's always at least 2 academics listening, having read your work, and then entering into a discussion and making comments. So it's extremely useful to hear what kind of questions academics ask and how they make the student progress. So those who can attend physically, if you're there for the International Week face-to-face, but we also do it on Zoom electronically in March, so twice a year. And in March, anybody can attend any event, any presentation. So they usually organize in half days per language, and you can attend, you get the topics and you get the language. You can choose any sessions you want to attend and listen in. Mm-hmm. There's also presentations by professors and various events, as well as the graduation. At the international seminar at the end of September, we also do the graduation.
Yeah, you answered to the question, but one applicant, one participant asked us this question about if I cannot travel for personal reason, how can I defend my thesis?
You can do it online. We do Zoom. We do final defenses online, and sometimes even hybrids. You can do it. The jury may be in one room physically, and you are online. We can find the format which suits you.
Okay. There is another question, but I think it's not to you, Nathalie, to answer. It's more to Johan and Constantin. The professor, they are all over the world. in Canada, in United States, in France, and so on, in Australia. Are they available? That's the question of the person online. Are they available because they are not in one institution? You don't meet them face to face. How do you work with them?
I don't know,
Okay,
Constantin,
maybe
do you want to go first?
Constantin?
Okay, sure. So there are two aspects. One, professor as the supervisor. The other one is coming back to what Professor Mitev shared, when we have the individual modules that allow for live one-on-one time with the professors who curate those modules. It's just a matter of requesting for their time, and so I'm in my third year, and I have to say I have nothing but respect and compliments for the professors. Yes, sometimes it takes a few days to find a suitable time slot that fits the different schedules and the time zones. But such is the reality. Even when you want to speak to a client or to a service provider in a different country, in a different time zone, so absolutely no issues in that regard. And with the supervisor specifically, it's good to have a regular cadence set up. On one hand, the professor knows there's a fixed time every few weeks in their schedule to block it out, and same for me as a student. But even then, any questions that come up in between, it's one WhatsApp message or one email in between, and additional time can be allocated for a conversation. So I find it very well organized, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned an important point. Every month, students they send a short report about what they did during the months, and this report is sent, of course, to Professor Mitev, but also to the supervisor, and it is the opportunity for a contact, a Zoom contact, or a mail contact. That's important. That's why the rate of success is very important.
The follow-up.
And if
The
I can
follow-up
interrupt
is.
you there.
Excuse me. Yes, Constantin.
Just a quick point on that, which is particularly important for people who choose the online DBA. Self-time management. Some people have it, some people don't have it so much. But even those who don't have it that much, what you offer is a certain structure and a framework and friendly nudges. Not nudges in a bad manner, but it helps time manage, it helps regulate, it helps allocate time and responsibility. So it's a very useful process for those who are using the online, who go the online route.
Thank you.
Yeah, the follow-up is very important for us, and maybe Johan wants to say a few words as well.
No, yeah, I was about to echo what Constantin just mentioned about the availability of everyone directly or indirectly involved in BSI and the DBA, from the team, admin, the professors, supervisors, and so on. To be honest, like when I went through the program on the year one, you have a couple of modules you have to go through. And I was extremely surprised that more or less every single of the professors at the end of the modules, obviously they gave me some feedback, but also asked, like, could I help you with your thesis? Do you have any questions? Because they knew that I was working on, as any student in year one, working on the research proposals, and they are all coming with a different experience, different perspective. And I was really surprised because in a way, it's not their role. They are there for specific modules, but they all ask, like, if you want to jump on a call, we're happy to discuss and spend some time with you to discuss about your research proposal, even if they were not my supervisor. So I was really, really surprised, almost overwhelmed, because it's you have all this like access to this network, but which is rich in terms of, again, learnings and experience. So I think definitely on that, I will echo what Constantin just mentioned about the availability of everyone. And on the follow-ups, again, I think it's because it's online, I think, as we said, it's really important in a way to have a bit of structured and to have what I call checkpoint, some checkpoint to ensure that maybe you are making some progress or maybe not, but you are kind of trying to ask yourself the right questions and getting some different feedback and perspective, testing some assumptions. And I think it's, that's also why you have like 3-4 years to go through the process. So I think all these mechanisms and checkpoints and whatever is face-to-face in Luxembourg and in Paris or online with a different your supervisor or not, I think all of them are really important. And one thing we briefly mentioned, but is the WhatsApp group that we have also with the students. So when you have like, you know, kind of simple questions, or sometimes that you might think it's a stupid questions, you know, okay, I have to do a qualitative interview. What kind of recently we were discussing like what kind of software should I use? Well, these are like these couple of like software you could consider. These are the more expensive, the less expensive. And then you have real world experience of the students, like maybe like Constantine and myself, that have gone and used some of them. So it's, again, you could kind of leverage some of the students' experience through this like WhatsApp group. And typically we don't take a couple of days to answer, you know, it's kind of on the same day you get a quick feedback. And I think I found this kind of ongoing communications with the rest of the students quite really helpful, basically, personally.
And for the online version, that the WhatsApp group is also very useful in the sense that all students are in the, you know, can join, whether they're starting or whether they're in their last year. And what's really useful, which I've seen happen time and time again, is that they help each other because they're at different stages. So that you can help each other when you're at the same stage, but you also help others who are at a different stage. And it's actually very useful because you learn from that exercise as well. And that benefits obviously your newcomers. So it's a very useful to do in a kind of inter-year, multi-year communication electronically, but it works. It's very useful.
Yeah, correct.
You just mentioned the opportunity to connect to a large number of professors. In the book, 80 A's of DBA Impact, one of the alumni told us that he had 60 contact with different professors during all the program. Of course, he had only one supervisor, but he found exceptional to have the opportunity to contact 60 different faculty. And you know, that's the strength of the network. And that's why it works. And it's also a key success factor for us. Okay, Constantin, do you want a word of a conclusion related to your experience or?
Listen, I would say the jury is still out because I don't have my degree in hand yet. So now it's a teasing comment here. Overall, my feedback is as follows. I think if people put in serious effort at the beginning, reflecting on why do I want to do a DBA? Is the DBA the right thing for me? And say, yeah, once they have that yes clearly defined on what do I want to get out of it, it's much easier to sustain the effort and see it through to the end. It will be worth a little bit of sacrifice. And yes, there will be a sacrifice. Instead of going out for a drink with your friends, you'll sit at home and read some academic articles with a glass of wine, you know. But it doesn't mean that you have to become antisocial. It just means having to balance things a little bit better. So what it takes is planning. It takes, you know, knowing why one does it. Since day one that I met Jon, I was always quite impressed because he was very, very clear in terms of why am I doing it, what I want to get out of it, what are the efforts I need to put in place to make it happen. And so far, you know, watching from the sidelines, he's doing a very good job in really keeping himself moving forward very, very quickly. So I think that's really what it is that for all of us to be clear on why we do it and then stay the course, you know, and before we know it, sometimes there will be certain setbacks along the way, but that's what you have your colleagues and your professors for, to also do a sense check that it's not a linear journey, but it's just like the stock market. It's trending upwards, but there's this little up and downs along the way. You know, we just need to stay the course. And I think that's the important one. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you to Constantin for these testimonies. Johan, a conclusion word?
Yeah, you know, maybe what I would say, and this is from my personal experience, it took me quite some time to go ahead, sign up and commit and say, I'm going to do that for the next 3-4 years. Basically, it took me many months, many years to try to think about what is going to be my topic and the methodologies. And so I've been like overthinking about the process. And I met a friend, you know, before starting the program. And then a year later, I met the same friend, and it was like already a year through the program, through the DBA program. So, and then I was like, you know, I've been thinking for the last 1 year about, you know, the topic and so on. And I'm meeting the same friend a year later. And then I was like, I just realized that I just wasted a year basically about trying to have all the answers to the many questions that I had before starting the program. So if I have like one personal experience that I would share is that you don't have to join the program, such program as the DBA by the BSI, with having every single answers to any questions you might have. And I think this is really important because the 3-4 years of the program, especially the year one, is to help you have the right questions, but also come up with the answers to these questions. And I realized that I didn't have all the right questions, and I didn't have all the answers that I thought I should have on some of these questions. So again, don't try to be sure. I wasted a lot of time, to be honest, before joining the program. So that's maybe just my only kind of feedback. I would say don't try to overthink and have all the answers before joining. Go ahead.
Thank you very much.
In fact, engaging progressively with the various academics and professors you have the chance of talking to throughout the program helps you refine your questions and kind of pinpoint and clarify what you need, what you want to do. That's one of our main jobs, really.
Thank you, Professor Nathalie. Thank you, Johan Sapanel. Thank you, Constantin Stangras, for participating in this webinar. Thank you to all the participants who are connected today, and for all those who will connect later when they will receive the recording of this webinar. Thank you to all of you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.